So they literally feel like they've tried everything in the world that they could possibly try, but nothing has worked for them, or they get partway there and they don't get 100% well. And 100% of the time, I can always find an emotional piece that they're holding on to that we can clear out. And once they release it, they find so much freedom in their bodies and their mindset. They find it easier to manifest things in their life, like the things they really want to be achieving, show up in a more graceful way. You are listening to Turn Your Soul On Radio. I am your host and visionary doctor, Dr. Brandy Victory, and my mission is to assist high-achieving women in closing the gap between feeling unfulfilled to living a life on fire. It is time, ladies, to champion our own lives and turn ourselves on. This is Living Victoriously, ladies. This is how you turn your soul on. Hello, beautiful people. I am so grateful to be here with you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope that your experience right now is just juicy, joyful, fun, maybe even romantic. Who wouldn't love to be having some romance right now? I know I would. Oh, my boyfriend just stepped out to go to a men's group to better himself, so I'm all for that. So I just thought I'd pop up here and chat with you for a minute while I was just feeling this gratitude rushing through my body. Today is my day, my creation day, and it's the most joyful day of my week, and I often have time at the end of the day to do some self-care. So I'm just sitting here going, oh, okay, I think I'm going to go take a nice long hot bath and write some Christmas cards tonight. And then I saw my sauna and I was like, ooh, or maybe I'll go sit in the sauna for a few minutes. And then I just realized how blessed I am to have the opportunity to do either of those things right now. So whatever it is that you're up to, holding just a sense of grace for you in my heart. And I just wanted to chat a little bit about how your pain or dysfunction or suffering may be getting in the way of your success. It's not maybe getting in the way of your success. It is getting in the way of your success. All right. So if your calling is to be of service of any kind, you have to be willing to be of service to yourself first. And that doesn't mean checking out for days on end, not returning phone calls, eating crappy food all night long. It's actually quite the opposite. It's really serving yourself first really means that you are taking time out primarily to be with your spirit every day. It means eating foods that rock your freaking body, and it means staying wide awake to the emotional triggers, the blocks, the patterns that show up for you in different circumstances, and then not letting them pull you down. You know, it's just so easy to get caught up in the quote-unquote story of pain or fatigue or being unmotivated. That seems to be a real big one right now. I have a lot of my ladies are like, I just feel unmotivated. And it might have to do something with the fact that we are in winter, because it is kind of a going inside retreat moment in the stars. But, you know, there's also things like bloating and gas and indigestion and constipation and stiffness and things like that. And, you know, it's easy to get caught up in those stories because it's our real experience in this dimension. And sometimes we even get attached to those stories. And here's the thing, if you've done a lot of work on yourself, which I know you have, or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, it's also really easy to convince yourself that you've already worked on your old shit and your patterns, and you think that you're done. And maybe you cleared some stuff out. I'm sure you did, because whatever work you have been doing on yourself has paid off. And when we get to that place where we feel like, oh, that charge is gone and we've cleared some things out and we feel inspired to move on to other things, then likely it's time to do that. But it doesn't mean that there may not be some residual underlying layers of that pattern that need to be cleared out at some other time. Okay. So I know like things like eating and food, that's been something I've had to come back to time and time and time and time and time again, and probably will have to come back to it again at some point in my life, right? It's just, we work towards creating more peace around whatever it is we're working on, and then we feel that level of peace, and so we move on. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we've completely cleared out the pattern or cleaned out the dysfunctional state that could be lodged in our nervous system. And whatever's lodged in our nervous system creates our reality. It's how our body functions. It's how we function in the world. It's how we respond to different activities and different people and different relationships and different triggers that show up in our life. Like that's all controlled by our nervous system and our subconscious. And past emotional stressors play a role in that. It's just the way it is. And yes, you can overcome stuff. I've overcome so much in my life, and I know you have too. Overcoming bipolar manic depression and overcoming chronic fatigue and overcoming fibromyalgia. Those are huge successes in my life. And I absolutely believe in your body's ability to heal. And I also know that sometimes it takes more than one try. Sometimes it takes more than, a few sessions with your therapist. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get down to the root of those dysfunctional states, okay? So we're physical and mental and emotional and physical beings, right? So we have, like for our physical body, we can address things from a nutrition perspective and exercise perspective and using appropriate supplements that are specific for our body's needs. Like that would be a few ways to address your physical body. And then when it comes to your mental body, it's all about mindsets and beliefs. So whatever you believe, you achieve. So if there's belief systems stored in your body about not being supported, then maybe you're gonna attract experiences in your life where you don't feel supported. Or maybe you're going to attract or have some experience in your body where you're not feeling supported. So maybe your ankles are weak, or maybe your low back is weak. Those are your kind of your support systems in your body. There's different things like that we can look at from a mental mindset perspective. And then obviously the emotional piece is based on our emotional background. So if we've had some trauma in our past, then that likely is coloring our world and causing us to show up in the world in a very particular way. It's as if we're wearing rose-colored glasses, and those rose-colored glasses are our perceptions of the world based on our past emotional stressors and our belief systems. And you have the right and the ability to take those rose-colored glasses off. The thing is, we think we take them off, but we don't necessarily take them all the way off. So if you've done some work on yourself, then maybe that's taking off like one layer of those glasses, but we're still got other layers to work on, okay? The reason why I bring this to the table is because I just had a patient. She's new to me. She came from another doctor. This doctor wanted me to do some nutrition consulting with her, and her primary thing was inflammation in her body. So she was having swelling in her hands, primarily at night. She was having distended belly, like belly fat, which we got down to was more of an inflammatory process than fat, because it was all in her belly. Like her arms are normal, her legs are normal, but her belly is distended with this inflammation that you can just see. And as I continued to work with her, I just get information, and that's just the reality of it. And the information I was getting was that this inflammation that she was having in her body was a result of inflamed emotions. All right. So I asked her when this all began. She's like, "Oh, well, this kind of all came on 2 years ago." And then and she just, I didn't even ask. She just told me, "I had this really emotional experience 2 years ago. And after that, I just couldn't hardly function. I had to sleep all day. My hormones were out of whack. I started going into depression, and she never had mood issues before, and all this stuff." Right. And so I mentioned to her, my inkling is that this inflammation that you have in your body is really a result of the emotional inflammation that you have from that past experience. And I would even take it one step further, and this is what I was telling her. This past emotional experience that you had 2 years ago was simply a reflection of something else that happened to you somewhere around the age of 6. So if you can figure out the link and go back to that experience around age 6 and go through the process of forgiveness and letting go and that kind of thing, you're going to really be able to move past this physical inflammation that you're having in your body, because she's got to just let it go on an emotional level, and it takes the layers. So she proceeded to tell me that, well, I've done all that work. I've talked to a therapist. I spent a lot of time with a therapist after that. I've really worked on myself, and I just don't. I think I already know all this stuff. Like, she literally interrupted me to say that. She didn't even want to hear what I had to say. And so when someone does that, it is an indication that I'm pushing a button. Like, if I'm saying this to you right now and you want to turn off this podcast, then maybe I'm pushing your button. There is something here for you. Okay. Because when you get triggered, then you want to turn it off. And that's what happened. She was like, basically like, shut up. I don't need to hear what you have to say. I've already done all this work. And well, I can't say it's a problem, but she really just wanted me to give her a supplement protocol. And so I kept having the nutrition conversation with her, because clearly that's what she wanted to do. But in the end, I totally told her that I just want you to know it doesn't matter how many supplements you take until you clear this on an emotional level and really go through the forgiveness process when that event was when you're in your childhood that's related to this thing that happened 2 years ago. Until you do that, it doesn't matter how many supplements you take, this is probably not going to resolve. And she didn't really want to hear that. And I told her, I was like, I know you don't want to hear this, but this is the reality of how I see it. And here's a protocol for you. So of course I gave her a protocol that was very specific for the adrenals, because anytime we go through stress, and she went through a lot of it, beyond that event she never even wanted to talk about. She had a lot of stress in her life, and our adrenals essentially are our organs that help us handle stress. So when we get into a stressful situation, they produce specific hormones to help us do things like have stamina and lift cars off babies. And whenever the adrenals produce cortisol, which is our natural anti-inflammatories. So if you're inflamed and it's a chronic issue, you probably have a chronic adrenal dysfunction issue, because you're not able to keep up with the level of stress that you've been putting your body through. So the inflammation continues to be a problem. A lot of people have gone and gotten cortisone shots, and that's quote unquote anti-inflammatory that they inject into a joint, and it causes the pain to go away. It actually is a very effective pain reliever. However, one thing is, if you're having to get cortisone shots, then your adrenals are down, because your adrenals should take over and be your natural anti-inflammatories. Secondly, I highly encourage people to do everything they can to stay away from cortisone shots. And the reason why is because cortisone is catabolic. And what that means is it breaks down tissue. So if you're shooting cortisol into your joints to relieve pain, probably because there's an injury or the cartilage is missing or screwed up or whatever, you're actually breaking that tissue down. So in the long run, you're actually harming yourself. So there's other ways around the pain. First of all, get to the root cause. What caused your pain? If it was a trauma, go get physical therapy. Go get some chiropractic care. Go get a massage. If it's not a trauma, then we got to look at the subconscious emotional interference that's creating it. You see, everything is energy, and every single physical experience you have has an energetic blueprint, and that energetic blueprint is either serving you or it's not. And so you've got to figure out, if I've got a disharmonic state in my body, what is the energetic disharmony that's happening, and let me go back to that and clear it out, because everything is energy before it's physical. So that is the root of all physical experience, be it good or bad, is the energetics. So often I hear people talk to me about the I've tried everything syndrome. So they literally feel like they've tried everything in the world that they could possibly try, but nothing has worked for them, or they get partway there and they don't get 100% well. And 100% of the time, I can always find an emotional piece that they're holding on to that we can clear out. And once they release it, they find so much freedom in their bodies and their mindset. They find it easier to manifest things in their life, like the things they really want to be achieving show up in a more graceful way. I have a patient that I've been working with for, I don't know, 5 or 6 months now, and she came to me with the Epstein-Barr virus. She was misdiagnosed with Lyme's disease, and then retesting showed she had Epstein-Barr virus, which is a significant problem. I mean, her, she's always been an athletic girl, mountain biking and skiing. She even taught skiing. I mean, she's a very active woman. And when she came to me, I quickly put her on a protocol to get rid of the pathogens in her body. That was the first thing, and support her digestive tract, and obviously support her adrenals. But we also, very importantly, worked on the subconscious interference. And so when there's this really great book, and I've probably talked about it in the past, but it's by Louise Hay, and it's called You Can Heal Your Life. And in that book, she has a list of problems, and then a list of the mindset that creates those kinds of problems, or the energetic blueprint of those problems. And then she also has a positive affirmation kind of thing that goes with it, so you can turn those mindsets, those belief systems around. And the Epstein-Barr virus specifically relates to the fear of not being good enough. And she's a good old German girl with a hardcore daddy. And this has been a lifelong struggle for her. The other piece of Epstein-Barr virus is draining all inner support. It's basically a stress virus. And this is, again, by Louise Hay, and You Can Heal Your Life. It's just a beautiful book. But the essence of that is she was holding on to that not being good enough, and all her inner support was drained. And so it created itself into a physical expression of Epstein-Barr. And I'm so excited to say that she is now getting her stamina back. She's now skiing again. She went skiing last weekend. So she came back. She's like, oh my gosh, my stamina is getting so much better. So it's really exciting. So exciting. And her husband, who referred her to us, is just so happy because she was his mountain biking buddy. So I know you're listening to me, honey. Mwah. I love you. I love you. Big hugs to you. I'm so happy for you. So I actually had someone ask me just recently to help them understand what issues with their sacrum was, because she's, taking really good care of her body, eating a good diet, going to the chiropractor, but she gets her sacrum adjusted, but it keeps coming out. Now, my first inkling was, oh, you know what? You need to strengthen up your pelvis. So, doing some Pilates and pelvic work would be really good for her. But when I looked up sacrum in that book, it relates to loss of power and old stubborn anger. Loss of power and old stubborn anger. So I'm so excited to have a conversation with her. I haven't even told her this yet. I just looked this up right before this session with you, and it'll be interesting to see if she feels like any of that is a part of her consciousness. If it is, what I would offer is, because if you're having this, I'm going to offer this affirmation that goes with it, and it says, I am the power and authority in my life. I release the past and claim my good now. I'm going to say that again for you one more time. I am the power and authority in my life. I release the past and claim my good now. All right, ladies, I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful week. I hope that your heart just feels so blessed. I am grateful for you being here, and I'm very excited to hopefully see some of you in the Ignite Your Life workshop. So if you haven't registered for that yet, you're welcome to go to drbrandyvictory.com and register for the Ignite Your Life workshop coming up in January. There's only 8 seats left, so claim yours now because there's only 8 seats left. And so we're going to be doing this kind of work. I'll also be doing the hands-on neuro-emotional work, clearing out the nervous system and the biofield. We'll also be doing, we'll have a sound healer here. We may even do concurrent work with a sound healer. I've started working with him, doing the nervous system balancing and the biofield balancing and the subconscious clearing work while he's doing sound healing, which has been an incredible experience for the patients that we've worked with. So I'm real excited for that, and I'm really excited to see you there. And whatever you do, turn your soul on. Thank you for tuning in to another awesome episode of Turn Your Soul On Radio. If you're enjoying the show and it's making a difference in your life, I'd be super grateful if you'd head on over to iTunes and leave a heartfelt review, which tremendously helps the growth of the show. Feel free to leave any suggestions or questions in your review, or you can shoot us an email at admin@drbrandyvictory.com. I also would like to invite you to become a deeper part of the Turn Your Soul On Radio community, which you can do by joining our private Facebook group, Turn Your Soul On. I'll leave a link in the show notes for you. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'll talk to you next time. Have a fantastic day.
This podcast is for information purposes only. Dr. Brandy Victory is not a medical doctor, and the views and statements expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Dr. Brandy Victory and the producers, disclaim responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.